Because I'm like moving and reacting to what you're doing, but they can't tell what you're doing. So I just look like sort of like a basket case a little bit. All right, welcome to the Cinephiles podcast. We are here talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's new film, Licorice Pizza, and I have a very special guest, Will Daly.
Hello.
Take it away, Will.
Wonderful to be here. Okay, I'm going to start first because, unlike Patrick, I didn't like licorice pizza. I didn't dislike it. I just didn't like it.
Whoa.
Because I think I'm kind of cursed to be weirdly superficial, as strange as that sounds. And I couldn't invest in a movie where the main characters were like not very attractive, which they weren't. And there's a kind of like, I know it sounds so juvenile and like superficial, but I just couldn't connect to them because the guy was just kind of silly and I felt he wasn't acting very well, and the girl was like so irritating, obnoxious, not attractive at all. So like I don't get.
I agree that they weren't attractive. I mean, that much is certain. But that was kind of the point. That's the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as for all the rest, I couldn't really grasp the point of the movie. It almost seemed like a TV show. It seemed like a season of like a slice of life TV show because all these events happened, but there was no real like build up or climax that I could discern.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, I want to hear also. What's your also?
Also, there were a couple scenes that were just jarringly unfunny, like the famously like controversial scene where the guy is being racist against Asians is not funny. I wasn't offended. I think if you have any intelligence, you won't be offended because unless you're a total idiot, which many people sadly are. The whole point is that this like goofy white guy is just so stupid and racist. But it's not like clever. It's not funny. It's like I don't know what it's like. It's like silly. It's like if he just like pulled his pants down and farted. It's like whoa, like it was so flat and like corny. That scene annoyed me. Also, the scene with the old lady where her face is jiggling, like that was just kind of disgusting.
Oh, I love all these like innovations, and I thought were well executed, and
never before seen.
and just welcome. I like how you're saying that they're just like.
However, Bradley Cooper being this kind of like primal father was funny. That was just funny.
He wasn't a father.
I know, but like psychologically, he was like because in psychology there's this theory of like a primal father who like gets all the women, and like allegedly we all like.
That sounds like some dark web nonsense.
Yeah, I mean I don't think it's real, but that's obviously who he was, dude. He said like all tail belongs to me. He's like the guy in Blue Velvet. It's a very
he was a fucking gorilla. I know. Whatever.
Well, yeah, but I don't know.
He was like the guy in Blue Velvet, although I mean, he's like
this force.
He was like a childish version of that, like a PG version.
He was genuinely funny in his aggression, and just because it was Bradley Cooper, he just played it really well.
I like how everything I kind of didn't like, you liked a lot. Like
and conversely, okay. I think this is the last thing.
Wait, what was the thing that happened at the Chinese restaurant or the Japanese thing? I missed that. The women who didn't speak.
Yeah, there's two times where this guy is marrying a Japanese woman, or he's married to a Japanese woman, and like to speak to her, he just does like a really racist Japanese accent because he thinks like that will get through to her. He's like, they say that we're so sorry. Like the joke is just
but you don't understand. This whole movie was a love letter to the '70s, and that kind of thing happened in the '70s.
Well, for one thing, I kind of find it. Well, the funny thing is, I found it hard to believe that anyone was ever that stupid, or if they were that stupid, I'm fundamentally uninterested in it. Like it's just like, wow, that's.
Okay, but here's.
However, I read an interview that said that Paul Thomas Anderson's like step aunt or something is Asian, and people did talk to her like that. So it's. I'm not denying it's a real thing, but like. There's something kind of uninteresting about it.
Well, it's true that if you talk to people in the phonetics of their homeland, they might kind of like you a little more. Like if you use the phonetics. I mean, I'm not saying you should abuse it.
I sort of see I actually kind of see the point. Like I see kind of a twisted logic to it. But ultimately, it's just kind of. I guess part of it might be that I fundamentally like really hate the '70s, but weirdly, the movie didn't actually feel that '70s-ish to me. As crazy as that sounds, because when I think of the '70s, I think of like sort of griminess and grunginess and just like afros and like body hair. It's just like all the most disgusting things in the world, and like all the tackiness of humanity.
You don't like the '70s? You think it's just like some greaseball, like oil prices are too high or too low or whatever?
It's not really about the economy.
Metallic.
It's just like the aesthetics were like. I
clunky.
think the only era where things were as like weirdly disgusting and appallingly ugly was the era that we grew up in, like basically the 2000s. Where there was just this rebellion against beauty. Like everyone just looked like freakish and bizarre and like.
Yeah, like the clothes were like unbecoming.
Yeah, the clothes were like these giant jeans and like weird hair and like brown and like yellow, just the colors of like runny diarrhea. That was like our.
Oh, what I always hate is when people wear like little, like they wear these like fleece jackets that look like down jackets or whatever, and it literally looks like a trash bag.
Yeah, well, yeah, or other people just look like they're encased in giant woven.
But you didn't like the shooting in this film?
When you say the shooting, do you like the cinematography?
Yeah.
I think that Paul Thomas Anderson is like an amazing guy for that, and I think he did a great job.
You realize there's more people to it than just Paul Thomas Anderson, right?
Yeah. And I think you told me before that like you've realized that I don't know, cinematographers basically make the movie. So whoever his cinematographer is, whoever did the shooting, they did a great job. I have no criticism.
Was it Robert Elswit? No, who's P.T. Anderson?
The last thing I want to say though is that like sort of debonair guy in the Cox crest or whatever. I also just didn't get. I just didn't get it. He's like this sort of guy who's uninterested in women and wants to like ride his motorcycle and like. There's also this like really old, filthy guy with a raspy voice who's like.
That was Tom Waits, dude, and that was and the other guy was Sean Penn.
See, I don't even know who any of those people are. Much as I don't really know who Barbara Streisand is or who
you at least recognize the name.
I do, but I don't really know what it means.
You don't know who Sean Penn is, dude? He lives in Marin.
Wait, are you saying the actor was Sean Penn, or he was like?
No, that's the actor, Sean Penn.
Yeah, I don't really know him from anything. I mean, I've heard the name, but I don't know who he is.
You're despicable. I think more enjoyment for me. If you can't like it, I'll just do it. I thought this movie was seriously good.
Yeah.
And I can see the limitations. I feel like the story was a little bit too like hunky dory and a little bit too quaint. It was like something that would fit a TV show rather snugly. It didn't have to be elongated to a movie. You could like it reminded me of like that cartoon F is for Family or something like which is it's based in the '70s.
Yes, maybe it was sort of tied up too neatly. You're saying.
And I liked the whole idea that she was like 25 and didn't know what she was doing with her life, and then she was hanging out with a 15-year-old who was like making a lot of money. I thought that was unique.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. That's a cool dramatic.
I like that her sisters were her like real sisters. That it was like a real family they casted.
Yeah, and there was a taste of something like very, very kind of rare, but also rich in their whole family dynamic between sisters. Like that's always just kind of.
Yeah, I wanted to see more of the sisters because I thought they were cool.
Yeah, I agree. They were only in there for like a few minutes, but they were interesting.
Well, they were in and out. If you're paying attention, they were kind of in and out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you also see that in Punch Drunk Love, where Adam Sandler has like all these sisters who are always like henpecking him and annoying him. Which kind of funny.
I kind of felt like the movie pulled its punches. Oh yeah, dude, in Punch Drunk Love, just as an aside, that movie isn't annoying to me, even though it's also P.T. Anderson directed it because they really henpeck him, and it's like brutal to watch. and I just it's cringy. You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't tolerate cringe in a movie these days.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like feels sadistic or something.
That's hard to get away with, and that movie was funny. The only scene I liked in that movie is when he started yelling at Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was the only good
because
scene.
he finally comes around and becomes a man.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also very funny because um, when he storms out and then Philip Seymour Hoffman is like, and don't you ever freaking come back. And then Adam Sandler like swiftly turns around and just like runs away. That was great. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, it was a really good exchange they had in that film. That's that sequence. But in this movie, it was almost like they pulled their punches and they didn't have any. You thought Bradley Cooper would like catch wind of their mischief, the prank or whatever, and he didn't.
Yeah, neither one.
And he was an interesting antagonist because he wasn't really like a bad person, but like he was like an obnoxious enough that in their world he was like a villain. But like in the wider human world, he wasn't like really like a problem.
Just some guy randomly on cocaine, you know.
Yeah, I mean, basically. Yeah, basically. And I love the gas. You didn't like the whole like gas crisis thing that happened where the water beds were made of vinyl and the vinyl is actually made of oil, so they couldn't do the water beds.
Oh yeah, I remember being kind of annoyed because she was like, you know, rubber is made out of oil, and I was like, I don't think it is. Like, I'm still not clear about that. I thought rubber was like a tree. Am I wrong? Like, I thought there were like rubber trees, rubber plantations. Maybe I'm just an idiot. So that fell on deaf ears.
No, yeah, I think synthetic rubber isn't made from the trees. You're right that natural rubber is.
Yeah, so like how the hell, you know?
Synthetic rubber is made from oil, petroleum, apparently.
Well, I mean, presumably synthetic rubber is like way more common than, and probably way cheaper to produce than natural rubber. But like, I don't know.
I mean, I could be wrong.
That's kind of the point. Is that like maybe it's just this kind of vague, ambiguous thing in the movie that.
I like how she doesn't even get a job; she just volunteers at the political campaign.
Oh yeah! Oh, I totally forgot about all that.
And I like how they couldn't tell that he was gay, even though it was like so obvious.
I couldn't tell.
You didn't remember. You don't remember when he told her, "Hey, you got to get out," because you don't remember when they're like, "You guys got to pretend that you're a couple and leave." Because
yeah, then before that, I didn't realize.
Well, you didn't remember when they asked him, "Why don't you have a girlfriend?" And he was like, "Well, a lot of great women I've met, but I just don't have the time in my schedule." He said some.
Yeah.
You thought that was real? I knew as soon as he said that something was awry. I mean,
you're more. Oh, also, what about that mysterious look mask T-shirt? That was another.
Yeah, I thought that guy was going to be like the Unabomber, but he ended up being like a random guy. Was he? I think he was no. I think he was spying on the politician.
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe he was one of his gay lovers.
Yeah.
It's not made clear. He's just kind of dangling there.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was a more attentive or intelligent viewer, I would like notice.
I mean, you just Google the plot synopsis and find out.
Yeah, there might be some review where it's like, it turns out that he was something.
Yeah, no, you can Google it. And I thought that guy was. I was kind of 50-50, yeah. But I maybe it was more leaning towards him being a spy or like falling, like, a competitor, like had planted him, like a paparazzi kind of person,
Yeah.
You didn't like all the 70s imagery and stuff, and like the
weird thing
pinball
is,
machines and.
I think that what the hell is that movie called? The one based on the Pynchon novel.
Inherent Vice.
That movie felt to me like 10 times more of a 70s movie than this one.
That was a 60s movie, dude.
Oh.
So you think the 70s is the 60s? Shows what you know.
I guess so. Yeah, actually, I see what you mean. You're right.
Those are actually like you might take a while to realize it, but those are actually quite different.
No, I know what you mean.
70s is like bowling and disco and like, you know, like used car salesmen and water beds and buying going to the pool store and buying pool equipment. It's like conviviality. The 70s is like conviviality, simplified aesthetics, a lot of stripes, stars. You know what it was the 200-year anniversary of America. 1776, 1976. So there was this patriotism.
Lincoln Continental, you know.
That's an older car, man. And that's also not that would be a 60s thing because the Civil War was in the 60s, 1860s, wasn't in the
general patriotism.
Well, yeah, but then there was this oil crisis because people went too far with it. Apparently, in the 70s, people were really like egoistic. Like they were like, oh, like I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get that. Like very libertarian in the way they thought about things.
Yeah,
it was kind of a libertarian era, but and you see that when the bar in that bar. By the way, they can smoke in that bar, and that's why it's so dusty. Yeah. And I thought that was so cool that they like emphasized it the way they did because those places don't exist anymore. I mean, you can go to private. It's like kind of those places used to be really common in like the Valley or in Orange County to go to like a lounge where you can.
Bars, kind of.
Is that a?
I don't know. That's the sense I get is that bars aren't really as dark. Like this like dark wood, heavy lacquer.
Yeah, and they have like a cobble. They have these like stonework walls. Yeah, they're like really dense. Weighty. The bars are like weightier back then for sure, and they were more of like an institution. Like you didn't just go there like to be cute. You went there to brood.
Yeah, and actually hang out and have a sense of.
Yeah, you'd either brood and you could get sauced, or you'd hang out and just and drive a motorcycle off a cliff outside of it. Yeah. But what's funny is that for me that scene would have been better, except I knew who Sean Penn and Tom Waits were. So it was like depersonalized for me because I was like,
well, you couldn't believe them in their character roles because you knew
I couldn't suspend my disbelief. Yeah, and
that makes sense.
But I liked that he had all the wrinkles he had. Like he was just such a hardcore smoker. This aged actor. Like the makeup was really good. And then Tom Waits the lines that Tom Waits had were like really good. Because Tom Waits was actually an alcoholic, so he could play in real life, so he can play an alcoholic. Well, and then Sean Penn is he's been I saw a movie with him recently by called The Thin Red Line. Yeah. And that was a World War II movie in the Pacific done by Terrence Malick. Very good film, and Sean Penn's a pretty good actor. Yeah, he's not like my favorite, but he's a pretty good actor. Yeah. Better than Johnny Depp or someone.
Yeah,
but I'm surprised you didn't like that scene. You just thought it was too sort of macho or whatever.
No, I don't mind that. I just didn't get it. I don't know. It's like, what is the point of this? It's not very funny. It's not very interesting. At least not to me.
Did you see it on the big screen?
Yeah, I saw the big screen.
What theater did you go to?
I actually saw it in Mill Valley Theater.
Sequoia. Oh, dude, yeah. If I saw it there, I probably would have thought it sucked too.
Why do you say that?
I don't know. I know those theaters intimately though, and I can tell you that they just wouldn't. Yeah.
They're agnostic. I feel like anywhere I see it.
They're claustrophobic, is what it is. You feel, and the cinematography was like so bold and broad. You really get like all these close-ups. They're like uncanny. All these faces are close, like super close-ups on every actor's face.
No, I did get that sense. The lady's face was jiggling. It was kind of unpleasant. Also, I didn't find it funny either.
I like that scene though when they jiggled her face because she because they could have done it from like 5 feet away.
Yeah.
But they did these close-ups, and I don't think she even knew they were going to cut it like that. Jeez, and so she's acting as if they're doing a typical kind of thing, and then I thought the way they kind of like altered it made it really fresh to me. Like I felt like it felt innovative.
It definitely is not something I've seen elsewhere.
I don't know, man, but you see, you're at the Sequoia, man. That place is like kind of a dusted up, campy, sort of dyed in the wool kind of towny movie theater. There's not, I wouldn't say there's a lot of attitude or anything, but it's just the Sequoia is like, I mean,
It's fun.
I'm at a loss for words because the Sequoia is kind of like in Mill Valley, like Mill Valley isn't like a classic town. It doesn't have a classic town vibe. Sequoia kind of is like this jewel in the town, but the movie is about SoCal. It's about Pasadena or whatever. It's not gonna really like correspond to that. Like you're gonna feel this contrast between Mill Valley and this
Where'd you
dissonance.
see it, dude? You saw it in New York.
It's in Arizona.
Well, you have the desert behind you. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're being too like holistic almost. Like the whole reason they have movie theaters is that it's meant to be agnostic somehow. It doesn't matter where you see it, it's the same movie. Like I believe I could have seen it on my phone. It'd be the same, as long as the phone is close enough to your face. What's the difference? I think that's why perspective.
I was also in the first or second row too. What row were you in?
I always like to be about the middle of the theater. Otherwise,
yeah, you shouldn't have had anyone to distract you in those seats.
Well, they weren't distracting me. I don't think so.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean.
Are you like exercising? You sound like you're sweating.
No, I just know some stuff. I saw the French Dispatch though. Did you see that?
No, I never saw that one. But that's not. We're not talking about that movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're derailing it. All right, so
that one was about like the postal service or something. I could watch that tonight. I could torrent it, pirate it. I could stream it on an illegal Russian server site. Ugh. But I probably won't. Wait, are the nice? Didn't we find that they were playing in New York somewhere still?
Yeah, but who knows if they're still doing it. Also interesting that his father was totally absent from that movie, the main character.
I think, there wasn't really an explanation for it, was there?
No.
And his little brother was funny. It was like Greg, his little brother Greg. Yeah. And Greg was like cooler than him.
But how so?
Well, like I don't know, Greg, like I just said because he was in like a band or whatever. When they had the party at the pinball machine store, his brother was in like a band, even though he was like 5 years old or whatever it was.
I don't remember that.
And then the mom was like barely in it. She was there for the one scene.
Yeah.
The story. What did you like about it? What was your favorite thing?
Let's see. The music was. I know it's not the story. I'm just thinking about what I liked. I mean, the story. I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to think. I don't really even know if there was a story. Like, it's hard to kind of explain it. Actually, I'll say that sometimes the dialogue between them was kind of genuinely like charming and funny. Like when he was like calling her an old lady, and then he pretended that he didn't. He's just being like this like kind of cowardly like kid.
Yeah, and the production design. Yeah, and the production design in that scene was good. Like the cigarettes were they're May. I'd never seen anything like that. The Mayflow or whatever. The Mayflow cigarettes. Like what were those? Like those are just like some retro cigarettes.
Yeah, some weird 70s things. I don't remember anything about the cigarettes, but I believe it.
Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, and the music was also really great. I mean,
that first song by Nina Simone, when they were first meeting, that was just incredible. That was like amazing.
Nina Simone.
That's what I'm saying, man. If they've been
okay.
What?
Nina, I like how you like the Nina Simone song. But she was just kind of fat, and she had a really deep voice.
It's just a beautiful, strange melody. I just loved it.
I actually don't remember that part, so maybe you're right. I just don't.
And also, just like his face, or like, I think his face was in the mirror and like looking at her water, and there were like fountains. It was all just very like poetic.
They did a good job of not making it cheesy. Like they could have made it. If they made one false step, that soundtrack could have been really cheesy, and like they had like a very like sort of because you have to, it's a balancing act because you have to it has to be nostalgic, but at the same time it has to be like sophisticated.
Yeah, it can't be too obvious. But that's see that
conspicuous.
That scene was almost where. Gosh, that scene was where they like lost me because I was trying to get emotionally attached, but the people were just too funny looking. I feel like they weren't even funny looking in like a 70s way either. Like they didn't look like.
No, they were just ugly. I know, man. I told my mom that because I saw it with my parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, and the whole time I was like, this. Why don't we live like this anymore? Like they had so much fun in the 70s, and my parents were like, well, I don't know. Everyone moved on. So moved on from fun. People stopped having fun. Oh, interesting.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had enough fun. No more fun.
Yeah, now everyone's a fucking computer game. Okay.
Yeah.
But no, I can't remember. What'd you just say? When was West Side? No, 57. That was a while ago. Shit.
Yeah. I almost feel like it's on streaming services. The French Dispatch.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. Have you considered seeing the new West Side Story movie?
It just seems too like it seems too mainstream to sound like a hipster.
Well, yeah, it's Steven Spielberg, and they got the guy who wrote. They got Tony Kushner to like rewrite it for.
Yeah.
And Stephen Sondheim did approve it before he died.
Yeah. See, I just get a sense that if you try to redo something, even if you're very faithful to the original, just by the fact that the world has changed, you're not actually faithful to the original. Like, for example, there are these hardcore traditionalists, and it's a funny analogy, in the Catholic Church who want everything to be like medieval times, but they don't really realize that, like, that you're never further from the medieval times than when you're trying to be in the medieval times, in the modern times, because you're going against the current of the age. So similarly, like this new Star Wars, new Blade Runner, new Matrix, like they can be as faithful to the original as they want, but that only brings them further away from the essence of the original. Because the original was not about like this obsessive exactitude nostalgia. It was something unique and new. So that's what I'm worried about with West Side Story. That, like, I don't know, I'm just reading too much into it. Maybe it's just another remake. It's probably good. People seem to like it. I feel like the original was a remake. I mean, it was based on Romeo and Juliet, so. But also, it was a transformation of Romeo and Juliet. And this is not a transformation. They're just doing the same thing again.
Yeah, I feel obligated to see it because I'm in New York City and I live in a Puerto Rican neighborhood. Well, it's Puerto Rican enough, but I feel obligated. But I just kind of don't want to. It's like, oh, like I'd rather see Scream, the new Scream. I like Licorice. I liked it more. It's my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie because his movies they try to be so weird, and I felt like this one didn't try to be weird.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
I also really just like the '70s aesthetic. I'm like partial to it.
Yeah, the nostalgia trip.
Yeah, and like I feel like people had better style back then. Like, the waterbed girl who was like the blonde bombshell looking girl, who was like kind of thick around the hips,
I remember her.
around the waist, right? Yeah, it's like you don't see a lot of women like that. That's just because they don't have this. They don't want to dress up like that. It's not like they don't exist. It's just.
You mean it's no longer considered attractive because people are too like
No, it's still attractive. They just no one has the presence of mind to be like, oh, that's a better way to do things.
Wait, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about like that kind of body type person?
No, that kind of look like shit eyeshadow. It really involved eyeshadow and
Oh
mascara,
yeah.
and then her haircut was like kind of cool, and like yeah, and like they just don't have that kind of people don't have the presence of mind to dress up like that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess all I
I
can
mean,
say
I mean,
is,
people do, but they just it's not like it's rare. It's like very rare.
I think I don't really grasp the 70s. Well, I said, but I feel like I saw. You see the original Rocky? I feel like that was a 70s movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that over 10 years, probably more.
Yeah.
Probably. I was never crazy about the Rocky films.
Yeah, I'm just saying, for some reason, the griminess, the like sort of despairing, like just it's like there's just trash, and coldness, and like fingerless gloves, and ratty torn leather jackets. It's almost like post-apocalyptic. Just like the sadness of it, like the weight of that. And that was a 70s movie. I felt like that really communicated.
That was also New York,
Yeah.
or is it
Well,
Philadelphia?
Chicago.
It was Philadelphia.
Whatever.
So that was the East Coast, and the East Coast that was the punk era. And actually,
It was an era of just like total urban collapse.
Well, I think New York's always like that little.
Nah, it was way different in the 70s.
No, it's always been shitty in New York. There's always been parts or East Coast where it's just been like, oh, this place is like run down and dilapidated. No one cares. And
Yeah. Yeah. '70s was an odd time. But again, I feel like it was almost like the people were acting I don't know, too realistic or something. There was a fuzziness that I don't feel the movie captured. It was almost too crisp and everything. I feel like the 70s weren't in such high resolution. Like no one really knew. I don't know.
Well, it's supposed to be like suburban, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's not the true Bacchanalia, whatever. So what else did you like about it?
Well, I don't know what your problem with it is. You seem like you have so many problems with it. It's like funny to me.
Yeah, I just didn't, like I said, I just didn't get it.
What do you mean you don't get? What don't you get?
I don't really get, well, I don't get it.
What's the get? I mean, you just didn't think it had a good story. I mean, what are we talking about?
I wasn't able to become attached to or invested with the characters, and I didn't understand the story, and I also didn't really get a sense of the setting in any way that I could like comfortably sink into that. And I need at least one of those things, so I didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe if I when did you see it?
What is an overpass?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if you, I knew that the character was 15 and she was 25 going into it. So I knew that they didn't hook up going into it. So I think if I watched it assuming that they were going to hook up,
Yeah.
I would have a different reaction at,
Yeah.
at the end. So I kind of engineered it so it would be I would enjoy it more.
Huh. That's interesting. I'm not disappointed it didn't hook up. I'm kind of indifferent, honestly. It's nice that they got together. But I think there is something kind of. It really is like one of the most. Like that's kind of like a high level story, like a sort of slightly older woman falling for a younger kid. That's very like it's kind of underrated in how poetic that actually is. Like Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis is about that kind of stuff. It's like so that can't get any more poetic than that. Like the freaking god of poetry, like literally, when he decided to write a love poem, he made it about that. So, and I think Shakespeare also, didn't he marry an older woman? If I'm not mistaken. He was like 19, she was 24.
I don't. That's a less of a difference. This was like a 10-year difference in this one, and she was hanging out with him because he had a good job. He had a business. Like, he was making money for himself. She was kind of using him for his money in a weird way.
Yeah.
And it was, but and she was hanging. I thought it was weird that she was hanging out with all these 15-year-olds. Didn't you?
Well, she thought so too. I mean, there's actually a line of dialogue. She was like, "Do you think it's?"
Yeah, she asked her sister. Yeah, if while they were smoking cigarettes in the dugout.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Do you think this is weird?" She's like, "Only it's whatever you think. Whatever you think it is. It's whatever you think." But I think that was she's dodging the question, really.
Yeah, totally. Just non-committal or something.
Yeah, it's weird how some siblings just like they're so tired of their like brother or sister's bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I really don't know.
That they just like they're so tired of their brother and sister's bullshit that they just never.
Just become neutral.
Yeah.
Don't really engage.
All right, man. Well, if you want to get to the cartoons, you can get to it. I'll cut this over. All right. Talk to you later.